Good morning, it's Anya Devine here. I'm coming to you from my living room in Milton Bridge near Edinburgh in Scotland. Backlit so you can hardly see me. I'm painting this, I'm going to do a bit more to this still life today, and I think you'll be happy to hear that I've arranged the iPad so that you're able to see the picture fairly clearly and closely all the way through. Now I'll show you what it is that I'm going to add into this painting. So that's what it looks like just now. I started it a few months ago. There's a few videos showing it actually. And I'm going to put those daisies. I just picked those last daisies from the garden and I'm going to add those in. But so that you can see properly, I'm going to bring you closer like this. And there'll be no more shuggling about now after that. So there you are for the duration. And I think you can see quite clearly. I have a plan about where I'm going to put. There's one daisy turning that way and I want to put it here, as I tore off a bit of the purple collage paper that was there and I stuck it up there instead, because I'm actually going to lift this a bit higher. It's just a bit low for me. Oh, for goodness sake, I thought I was all streamlined this morning, completely ready. You know what, I got myself a heavier drawing board and I had to really tighten the ledge here, and then the big heavy drawing board didn't work, so I took it off. And now this is, so that's why it was so tight to try and do it there. It's hard. I think this should be the right height now, just for doing that lower daisy. No, it needs to be a good bit higher than that too. Oh. I won't tighten it too tight now, in case I need to shift it again. Yeah, that feels a bit better to me now. Just while I'm doing the one that's there. You want to arrange yourself in a position where you can easily see and draw down what it is that you're seeing without having to move anything other than your eyes. Now, I always say that, and then I say, but remember, it's important too to stay lively in yourself. And you can dance about in between marks, of course. Shaking it off if you're feeling tense, and standing back in order that you can clearly see what it is that you're doing and if there's anything that needs adjusting. So, looking at this now, I wanted to take the whole lot of that off, but it wasn't coming. Because I think that's, or even if I could make it a thinner layer of purple. You know, it's just not playing ball. I'm going to need to paint over it. I kind of wanted a bit of a blank canvas, or at least something dark, because I know that the daisy there is going to read as being is brighter than the background. I want it to stand out in that brightness, and so that's, it really somehow is off-putting. I'm putting some Turps on it and see what will happen if I had sandpaper or something. That would probably work. I think it's off-putting because I want to have a clear area so I can just draw the shapes that I'm seeing of the daisy. And there's no purple at all in the daisy. Like, the white would be okay. There we are. And you know, I might as well use that little bit I took off. I'll take some glue from up there. And where would I put that bit now? Just stick it there. Alright, so here we go. I'm going to tolerate that, the disturbance of that little bit of white. Now what'll I do here? Yeah, so I'm noticing the tilt of the daisy. There's a triangle of dark coming down here, triangle of dark coming up here. Those are the two significant ones. And there's more petals on this side than there is on that side between the two triangles. And then there's a centre of the daisy, which might sit about there, unless I just make it stand out a bit further and put it there. Okay, I'm gonna start. Ooh, it's a bit strange. It feels strange to start with white. I think that might be the simplest way of getting the information down here. I don't want that to influence where I put everything now, so dearie me. I want it to be here, in the centre, maybe there-ish. It makes me think that I want to start instead with a dark colour. So I'd use the ultramarine blue, which looks like that, mixed with, I don't know what that is now. I think it's burnt umber. Yeah, burnt umber that looks like that. Maybe a bit of viridian green too. So that's the burnt umber there. The viridian green gives it a feeling of maybe dark foliage. And what I'm going to do now is place the daisy best I can where I want it to be. Okay, so I'm going to bring in. Why is that annoying me so much? It's gas, isn't it? I think I'm just going to do that so that I'm not so distracted by that bit. And I've got some low odor. Sans odor is called. It's a solvent, low odor solvent. Right. Okay, so let's make the triangle, the first triangle I was talking about here. I suppose it is a bit of a venture into unknown territory when I'm adding a new flower in to a painting that I started and I thought I was finished it ages ago. So I guess you can understand there being a bit of reticence, because I don't even know really what size I want this daisy to be before I start. I don't know what size I want it to be in relation to the sunflower. So there's quite a few decisions to make here. And it's okay to not know in advance, but to give myself a bit of space to discover what it is. There's another, there are little triangles all the way around, but then the second biggish one is down here, and that's in relationship. I'm trying to find where that one is in relationship to other dark in-betweeny bits, other dark bits that are in between the petals. I think to put in a few white flowers very often enhances your work. Now that one needs to be further to the right. To put in some white, maybe not any white, but I find that daisies, particularly oxeye daisies, the big daisies, to me, I think they work really well somehow. I'm just trying to focus here now and decide. Yeah, I'll put in something for the centre. I keep telling myself, you know, the best way I think to describe stuff is to paint the edge of whatever is beside it up to it. And it's just kind of tricky to know where to start with this, whether I could have started with the white, but I think the white might be a bit too dominant a colour to begin with. I'm working over collage as well here, so it's not exactly perfect ground for oil paint. It's just a little bit of that is just paper. But I'll keep the faith anyway. Yeah, I'm locating. See this? I think I'll just let that sit back a little bit there and trying to find the shape of the negative space between the petals in relation to other negative spaces. So this one is pointing down. This one is pointing down to the inner edge of this one, so that needs to be there. And then this one is pointing kind of there-ish. Oh, dearie me. It's quite a lot for the brain to compute this early in the morning. So I'm lifting off, because I'm relying on the triangle that's here now being fairly accurate. And that means that I needed to adjust some other ones down here. I think to clarify things for myself, I'm going to put in some petal colour. So this is white paint, titanium white. It's a fairly bright petal, this one, so I'm okay with using almost. It's pretty well neat from the tube, that white. You know, I said I wasn't going to move you. I'm going to move you, because I want you to be able to clearly see. You can see the darks a bit better there now, can't you? So it's this daisy I'm working on here. And then there's one here. That's equally it's very bright as well. And then shooting out the other side, there's a leg of a daisy there too. I might at this point now just take a step back and see how it's going in relation to the whole thing. It's a very safe approach I've got in relation to the approach I had, the gung-ho approach I had when I was painting the first. But sure, it's all welcome, isn't it? When I was painting the first part of this, it was all loose and lively. Now, I will put the link to that video below so that you can know what I'm talking about. I used to always do that, didn't I? I used to put the links below and everything. And I'd say, if you want to find out more about me, have a look at the links below. But they've gone by the wayside a bit. I suppose it's early in the day too, sure. I can let myself ease into it a little bit. I was dancing last night, in Edinburgh in Stockbridge. And now here's another lightish one. It's helping me now, that one, because I see its relationship to that. You can see I put a bit of, I think it's yellow ochre. No, it's not, it's cadmium. Yeah, there was a mix of cadmium yellow and that dark colour, so the green, blue and brown mix that was there, that I've put into the white in order to give it a more muted look in places, because not all of the petals are fierce bright. Some of them will be significantly darker than I've got them, but I'm trying to mostly find those lighter ones just now to identify the position of the daisy. And to find the centre of the daisy. I'm going to stand back again now and see if this is too botanical an illustration for this painting. Here, I'll go with it, sure. What's the worst that can happen? I'll just keep going with it. And I guess, you know, when you do 3 of anything in a painting, you can kind of get away with it a lot. So my plan is to do another daisy up there and a third one over there. So if this is painted in a very different way to the sunflower, I think I'll get away with it by virtue of the fact that I have a few more of the same flower located around the painting. And then there's quite a white. I need to half close my eyes. Often the white is white only by comparison to the dark in between. I need to watch that too. Just stand back again there now. Okay, I'm gonna put in some of those petals. So I'm using the dark colour that was a mix of the burnt umber, ultramarine blue and viridian green, and I'm putting it into the white, and I'm getting there a kind of a grey white that I feel will work for the petals that are over here. And it's often a good idea to paint your slightly darker colours more thinly. I've said this a lot of times, but sure, stuff is worth repeating if it's helpful, isn't it? And I think that's one of the most helpful bits of advice that I got, was to remember to make your darks a bit thinner. And, you know, in general, rules are made for breaking too, but in general, for your lights to be painted more thickly. It just somehow, I suppose, they stand out in relief and catch the light, and we know that they're brighter then as well. So having thicker paint somehow really helps there. Right, so that greyish colour now, I'm quite happy with that for the white petals that are here that feel a little bit less vibrant and bright. I don't really know how they're not as bright as the others because they are facing the window, but maybe it's also because the plant is a bit worn now, and these were the last 3 daisies that are in any way intact and not rusted or trampled into the grass. My friend who gave them to me was saying next year I could put a ring and some supports, you know, like sticks and a ring at the top, so that they could flower up into that and that they'd stay going for even longer then. I think I will do that. And like, I'm not a hugely active gardener that way, but I love the daisies so much that I want to give them all the support that they need to flower all summer long and into the autumn. So I'll do that next year. I've divided the root of the daisies 3 times, so there's 3 lots of them now. And I could maybe divide them up again, I'd say. But Mary, my friend who gave them to me, was saying that they do well when they're divided. They have room to expand again then. Nature is fierce abundant altogether, isn't it, really? Lady at dancing yesterday, Gillian Galbraith, who just does the, I think it's movement medicine or 5 rhythms on a Wednesday, the dancing that I went to last night, she bought in a basket of plums and apples from her garden. And she said when they came back from their holidays, the plum tree was so laden with fruit that it had fallen over, some of the branches were so heavy with fruit that they had cracked off. And she said, like, there's like a crazy abundance of plums and apples, and in the woods even the blackberries this year, she said, are plump for the first time, because in the woods normally they don't grow that much, they don't, you know, plump up so much. But I've noticed that about the blackberries in the bushes here. Like, every time I go out walking with the dog with my friend, we have a ritual now where we stop for about 5 minutes before we go anywhere, and we stock up on blackberries just at the gate into the field. There's a good few blackberry bushes there. There used to be raspberry bushes, of course, but in the summer, the raspberries we would have. I can just look at the screen if I want to see how it's going. Okay. Yeah, in the summer it was raspberry bushes in the very same place, and now it's blackberries. So I had a good feed of them before dancing last night. But still, when I got back, I cooked a meal because I was starved. Maybe there's something about the dancing that makes you ravenous. But a kind of a satisfied ravenous. I feel like, okay, I'm going to feed my body. So I had a good meal before going to bed last night. And I'm doing a course, and one of the things we were advised to do last week as part of our homework was to write down what went well today and what could I do differently tomorrow. And last night at 1:30, as I was going to sleep, I thought I'll cook and eat an evening meal earlier tomorrow, and I'll go to sleep earlier tomorrow. So that's my plan now for tonight. It's good. I think writing it down really does make a difference to the intention. It strengthens it somehow. And I think sharing it with other people, so thank you for this opportunity, is another thing that strengthens it even more. And the other thing I'm doing, so that was last week's homework. This week's homework, and you know, if you've been following, if you know me, you know that I try and do a gratitude list at the end of the day. When I say that, it sounds irritating, doesn't it? I can imagine. Anyway, it works for me. Sometimes I feel like I kind of keep the faith with it, even if there are days when I'm having to really sum up, okay, what was good about today. I still think it's a good idea to end the day with thanks. And like in the last few days, I felt very grateful for so many things. It was hard to whittle it down to 3. That was the number we were asked. So that was our homework this week. It's a writing group I'm with. I just started on Tuesday, but she gave me the homework for last week. Mindfulness, writing and mindfulness. And so the gratitude list is something I've been doing anyway, but we've got a lovely notebook that we got with the course, and so I've got myself a little bit of structure around it, because before I would write thank yous in all different notebooks and the bits of paper and everything, whereas now they're contained alongside the other homework, which is what did I do well today and what could I do differently tomorrow. So I've got 2 pages done so far, so we'll see how that goes. And actually a third thing I've kind of added in myself is my values. That was from something called Anam Cara that I did earlier, from fear to courage, or as I said to my friend the other day, from courage to fear, which is really bad, because that's absolutely not the intention of the course. It was really good, from fear to courage. It was for women only, and one of the tips was to kind of consider what your values are and see how you live into those each day, and that actually your values can change on a daily basis. You can have more emphasis on one thing than another. And so what I've started to do as well is the gratitude list and the what was I saying? So I was doing the gratitude list, and I've lost my way here now a small bit. Let me just focus. That one needs to be thicker. So I was doing the gratitude list and the what could I do differently tomorrow and what did I do well today. I'm also writing my list of values at the end of every day. What values? Oh yeah. So yesterday I wrote like about 10 things, and then last night I wrote how I fulfilled or how I did something towards my values, how I so for example, beauty is a value of mine. I love to have beautiful things around me and to create beauty best I can, and to experience it. Like Matt Haig says, the natural response to beauty is love. And see, yesterday morning I went for a swim at Flottiston, cycled over, went for a swim in the reservoir, and this is nestled in the Pentland Hills now, this reservoir, and it's got epic kind of sunny views of hills around. It was really sunny yesterday morning, and I was hot after cycling over, so I was well primed for hopping in the water. But the beauty of the sunshine on the water, you know, I love that. I think most people do, don't they? It was like stirrup, gold shimmering on the water. And so when I was remembering my gratitude list, and I thought, oh, that was fulfilling the value of bringing beauty into my life. And another value was connection with nature, connection with other people, connection with myself. So that all, those values were all being ticked by that swim. And I met a friend for lunch. That was, yeah, so you get the idea. Right, how am I doing with that? I think it's all right. I'm stand back. Yeah, it's very different. It's bringing a very different vibe altogether. And I'm going to go with it. So, do you see the looseness of the sunflower in relation to the tightness of that? I don't think it feels tight painting it. It doesn't. But it looks, in comparison and in relationship, there's contrast. And you know what? I must remember, contrast is a good thing, isn't it? Contrast is good. So it's all right. We'll see how we go. Just putting something in the center there. There's a bit of a glow of yellow. I mean, it's an old daisy now, so it's not singing as brightly as it would have been earlier in the summer. And there's a little bit of a brownish burnt sienna kind of hint to the center of it there. Right, I'll go back to my brush with the dark on it now again. I'm mixing the Viridian green with the burnt umber this time, a shortcut to get into the dark. And I'm going to fill in the spaces that aren't yet clearly, the dark spaces that aren't clearly explained. I know I don't have to do them all, but that felt like an important one, that dark one there. It's gas when I'm chatting away to you, like I could have every single detail of this, I could be going around it and really doing every little thing as every sentence comes out of my mouth. I could kind of, just go to town on the whole botanical illustration style thing. Because it's quite a pleasing way to paint too, that gradual finding of things. Sometimes when I'm chatting, I do trust my intuition that it's not going to force me into a space of too much. And especially when I feel soft in my body and restful and peaceful, I feel like I'm not then going to do anything that'll be garish, or it's less likely that I would anyway, I think. So I just trust that wherever my eye and hand are leading me next, it's going to work for the painting, and if it doesn't, I trust that I'll see and notice before it goes too far. A lot of trust there, isn't there? Right, I'm mixing some cadmium yellow now with some of the Viridian green in order to put some of the lighter green, where was I going with that? Slightly lighter green backdrop to some of these triangular spaces. There's a few petals I'm shortening a bit as well now. Changing the shape of them by painting the negative spaces. Oh, there's Lily's, or Maisie's buddy, Alan, and his dog Dusty. Alan gives Maisie sausage, and she loves it. So as a result, she gets fierce excited. When we meet Alan out walking, she gets fierce excited. At least she's not barking mad. There's a couple of boxers that go by and she barks really loudly and suddenly sometimes. It can be a right jolt to the nervous system. And then there's other dogs that go by and she takes no notice whatsoever. Right, there's things here now that I'm not fully sorted out over here. Isn't that gas wanting to fully sort everything out? Sounds like an impossible task. But I suppose it's in her nature, isn't it? To try for the impossible anyway. Or to yearn in that direction, to lean in that direction. I don't know if you can hear the birds. There's beautiful bird song these days. We've got a tree, and our neighbours next door, they've got a lovely big tree. Do you know what? I don't know what it is. It's terrible. It might be a beech tree. It's massive anyway. And starlings congregate there sometimes. And you would swear their life depended on the singing. They just warble away together beautifully. It's such a lovely, soothing sound. And I can hear a few of them there now outside. I don't know if it's starlings or what, but there's some birds singing, chirruping. I sometimes sit outside. I did it this morning on the grass and do a meditation, and sometimes it depends on which one I choose to do. I use guided meditations quite a bit. And this morning, actually yesterday it was, were to kind of hear all the sounds around, and so I suppose maybe it opened me up to being more aware of the bird song too. Right, I'm going to check out now where the brightest bits of these petals are all located. There's a nice bright patch there, surprisingly. And the tips of these two are bright too. With a slightly upset tummy. Not really bad, but just that feeling you get, slight dread, you know that feeling? And it's related, I think, to a conversation I had with Lily where I don't feel like I was very skillful. And then I give myself a hard time. The whole thing about it. Yeah, this is getting fierce. I'm involved now there, aren't I? Pretty significantly involved in that Daisy. What'll I do next now? Kind of jammed up against the window here. I wonder if I need to maybe put a bit more greenery in. Just to let it kind of to bridge. No, it's here really, isn't it? I could put some greenery in there. Oh, that's not green. I was out painting yesterday in Cockenzie, was I? Or it was the day before. And I only just washed the brushes there now, so I obviously didn't wash it very well. Okay, so I'm mixing again the cadmium yellow with the viridian green. And I'm going to just put some patches of green in here. I mean, I don't know if I want to start faffing around with this stencil. I don't, you know. I think I'm just going to kind of find my way across to where I'm going to do the next daisy, which I think will be here, because that's a greenish patch in acrylic that I can work over in oil. So yeah, I'll do the next one. And then we'll see if my theory is correct. As theories can be, correct or incorrect. And see whether by putting in 2 more daisies this one settles in a little bit more into the painting. I'm just going to turn you that way a tiny bit because my body is very close to the camera and I don't want to end up hitting you. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to put it there. It is actually in relationship to the other one. By chance it happens to be, I assume it's by chance, it happens to be in the position relative to the other one that's convincing. Like in the same it's the same distance away, roughly. And it's allowing me to kind of compare the height of this one to the height of that one. Yeah, so the top of this one over here is going to be as high as the top of that one, but the bottom of it is lower. The bottom of it is not as low, I should say. So the bottom of it is, yeah. Kind of helps to locate it according to another flower, I think. You know how I normally put the flowers sitting up high? I'll show you what I've done today. You can't even see the flowers, they're so low down. Because when I painted that still life first, that still life there had I was painting it on a lower table. I was looking down on it. So this is ultramarine blue mixed with the burnt umber that I'm using to draw the outline shape of the daisy so far. So that's the bottom of it, and the top of it will be about here somewhere. So I'll do a triangle, a bit like before. I've discovered a couple of triangles and their relationship to each other. Hopefully a little bit simpler than the last time. It'll actually work for me. First time, rather than me having to go over them again and replace the triangles. So it's the same as before. I've started with the darks around and I'll bring in the light of the daisy then. I'm inclined to think that I could try and do less in this one. Not have to fill in, because even just looking at the screen now it already begins to read as a daisy, doesn't it? Or as a flower with petals anyway. So maybe I don't have to labour so much. In fact, it might be a bit of a breathing space if it's not completely filled out. But I think in order for it to marry with the other one, it does need a bit more detail. And I'm starting to feel like I could put something a little bit more clear, and just a couple of those sunflower petals could be observed again from a painting of sunflowers that I've got there would do, so that there isn't such a gap between the style of this one and the looseness of that one. Let's see. Alright, I'm going to leave that now and I'll go to the centre, because the centre of that daisy that I'm painting next, it's not as dark as that centre is. The colour of it is yellower, and painting the centre of the daisy is a helpful way to locate it too. It's a strange hour of the morning to smell barbecue, but I think I can smell someone cooking outdoors. Actually, Cindy next door cooks outdoors quite a bit. It's lovely. She builds a fire and cooks on it. Cindy's originally from Malaysia. As far as I know, it's Malaysia. Yeah. And she's really a wonderful neighbour, you know. Like when I was at home in Ireland there for a few weeks, unexpectedly, she actually weeded around the perennials as well as cutting the grass, and you know, being a support to my girls, she ended up, for the first time, they were weeded around these perennials out the back of the studio. So it was a nice surprise coming back. Right, so there's quite a few longer petals coming out that way. I like that yellow. I'm going to put some more here. I feel like it's got a bit more daisy to it. You see, I suppose these are well, this is an autumn daisy, and that's a sunny midsummer sunflower. So I guess there's a slightly different characteristic to it. Right, I'm going to get the white now, or this slightly off-white, and I'm changing brushes each time, which is great because I don't have to keep washing them in between marks. So if you've got I get the burgundy brush set from Royal and Langnickel. If you've got that set, there's a few brushes in that are flat, which I like, and have there's quite a few of them, so you can have different colours and different brushes all the way through the painting. I could stick with this being the white brush and another one being the green brush, and it just makes your process a bit more streamlined. You know, accustomed as I am to streamlined living. It's like my sister got married, their best man said, I probably heard this before, but it was my first time hearing it. Unaccustomed as I am to public speaking. And this guy was obviously very accustomed to public speaking. Right. So there's a bit of that. I wonder, should I just go somewhere else? I wonder if you're ever invested so much in the painting that you're shouting at your screens, go somewhere else, stop at it. I wonder if that ever happens. That'd be kind of fun. I could have answers on a postcard thing. Right, does anyone want a postcard? Because I got 5 or 6. I've actually got 5 now, because I am sending one to my friend in America. That's Pam. Thanks, Pam. And she's going to send me one back. So, yeah, that would be a nice... It's not obligatory. You're not obliged to send one back to me, but it would be a nice part. It would be welcome. But if you want a postcard, send me your address to anyadivine@gmail.com. Or if you have another email address for me, they all go to the same place. And send me your address and I'll send you a postcard. And do it this week now, because if you want a postcard this week, I'm sending them this week. Why am I getting it all mixed up? That's the greyish. That's a petal that's a bit greyer. Right, that's maybe enough of that now. And I could always just go to the last one. That's going to be here, and then decide if I need to do any more. Yeah, so I'm going to move the setup so I can see the last daisy that I'm going to paint there. Ish. And you can actually still see from where you are. I don't know if you can see that. Look, this is the one I'm going to be doing next. I can see the center of it, you can't. And I'm going to be doing it here. So I need to bring down the easel again. I want to be comfortable when I'm painting. Okay. So there, yeah, you can see that alright. It's a bit of a stretch for me to look all the way over across the board, but I can catch that daisy now that I've moved the still life a bit. Okay. Yeah, I think I'll leave it. I'm not sure if I like the... Just turn it away from me a little bit more there. Okay. And I'm going to make a dark colour by mixing the ultramarine blue and the burnt umber again. And I'll do the same as I did in the last two. I want to actually just identify the dark a bit more clearly in that one. It's good when there's dark shadows behind it. Okay, no, this one is a little kind of more complex somehow. Do I want to put it higher than this? Do I? Yeah, I'll maybe put it here. This one is a little bit more complex because it doesn't seem to have really triangular spaces. It's more flat topped. The spaces between the petals, at least in some areas, are more flat topped. But there is a triangle here. And it's quite a big daisy, this one. Is that you, Colin? Oh, yeah. And then there's another triangle there. And one here. I need to make sure I'm leaving enough space. Sometimes when you move around like that, it's helpful to look back at your original point and see whether the distances are true. So the center of the daisy here will be located about there. It's quite yellow, this one now, so that's nice, a bit brighter. And yeah, and that does need to move over to here, that triangle. And I just move the other ones correspondingly then, so there's a big petal there. This one, it goes like this, down to the triangle in between the big petal and the next one. I should say the previous one. Let's see how that's looking. I want it to look as though it's not so like obviously imposed, these flowers are, that they're somehow sitting with what's already there too. I had a swim yesterday, I told you that, and it made me realise how good it is for me to do that again. I'd forgotten. Like I had been swimming, but I was more just kind of putting myself in the water, you know, and knowing it's a good thing to do, rather than actually having a real passion for, yes, I'm going to get in the water this morning. Yesterday I cycled over and was so hot getting in that I really needed it. And it reminded me too of how what good medicine it is for my body to be in those surroundings, beautiful and fresh and cold, and the beginning of the day, you know, having that little jolt to the senses, shock me into life. So after this, my plan is to go over again and have a swim. Bring some green in there so that it fits with the flowers that are here. so that it fits with the painting that's already underneath, because what I'm painting behind it is piano. Still, I think it's alright. If any of you have bought paintings from the Facebook sale, do you know what's lovely? And I'm getting quite a few of them now. It was pictures, photographs of the paintings in situ in your houses. Lovely to see that. To see them ensconced in their new home. At some point, most of them would have sat on the piano over there, like the pile that's gathering up there now again. And then maybe have an exhibition in the Torrance Gallery. Fiona there is lovely. She's invited me to show some of my floral paintings there. The thing with the flower paintings recently is they take a while to dry because of the oil paint, especially if I'm using it quite thickly, which I tend to at the moment. You know, with the flowers and all like that kind of thing. The sunflower painting that's sitting on the piano at the moment is very brightly painted with thick oil paint, so it's needing a wee while to dry. But that one's going to probably be in that exhibition. There's a video of it happening. If you look up sunflowers in oil, it should come up. I think if you go to my channel, you'll be able to see all the videos. Like this, I'd say there might be hundreds, you know, made over the last 6 or 7 years, is it? I think. It seems to be a while anyway since I've been at it. So if you're interested to have a look at some others, like when Rose was over with me, she set up my YouTube channel, Rose from Norway, who's my friend and fellow artist, and she was brilliant. She came and filmed me for a while too, and so there's some really good ones that she filmed that are edited and everything. But I went a bit downhill then after that, maybe, in terms of technology anyway. Right. Okay, I'm going to start using the white now for the petals here. And in the same way as I did that one, I think I mightn't. Let's see, but I don't think I'm going to explain all the petals. I'll just half close my eyes and find the ones that are especially bright. Parts that are especially bright. I like half closing my eyes because it really helps me to focus in on where really the brights are and the highest points of contrast. So I think that's another really helpful bit of information, advice that I received that I'd be passing on over and over, to squint. And what you see squinting is often enough. Because one of the biggest stumbling blocks, I think, for us painters is explaining the life out of something. Maybe there's an example there. I know, it's not too bad. But you know, sometimes you can kind of vigorously continue, relentlessly chasing something, and become so embroiled in it that there's no standing back, there's no kind of relationship of that part to the whole thing. And it becomes like something, I almost want to say ugly, kind of enters in sometimes when that happens. That's a big judgment, isn't it? Yeah, maybe that's why I have a hard time getting to the easel sometimes, is if the challenge is to not do something ugly. Imagine. That's quite a job. But you know, yesterday I was listening to the amazing Anne Lamott on Tim Ferriss's podcast, and she was talking about this procrastination, or a kind of a fear of imperfection. And she said when she's teaching writing workshops and her students in college, she teaches She teaches, and well, what she advises them to do is to sit your bum down and leave it there. You know, for writing, like, make sure that you just sit down and leave it there. Don't wait for inspiration. And she said, whatever you're writing, if you're writing a novel and you've got characters, write about one character and write badly about them. Do a bad piece of writing. Write about it badly. So that's your motive, that's your goal, is to, you know. And I was thinking about that yesterday, and it really let me off the hook. Like, I thought, I just want to do it. Like, I just want to be able to kind of get into doing some bit of painting every single day. And so what I did yesterday was, I told myself, I'm just going to paint this and paint it badly. Not this picture, but another one. And as I was getting a bit, as I was moving in, you know, and getting involved in it, I kind of thought, oh, this is actually quite nice. And then I thought, oh, but it doesn't matter. I'm needing to fulfill the brief of doing it badly. So I then took more risks, and I had permission for it to not look good. I think maybe if you listen to her explaining it, you might be convinced more than what I just said there, because she really made sense. And of course, words are her paint marks, and so she can clearly pass on the feeling of that. Anyway, it helped me lose that fear of doing something ugly. It was good to remember that. I suppose you could say it about anything you're procrastinating upon. Just start and do it badly. At least it's like the James Clear thing. He says, just do 2 minutes of whatever it is you're procrastinating upon. Set the alarm and make yourself stop after 2 minutes. Just do 2 minutes of whatever it is, even if it's like a full day's work on something that needs, you know, that it needs hours of work. Just set the alarm and stop after 2 minutes, and do that for a few days. And then something is freed up where you actually really want to keep going with it. He speaks about that with the yoga mat as well, like roll out the yoga mat. You could roll out the yoga mat for 30 days. You're developing the identity of somebody who does yoga, rather than having to do an hour long the first day you decide to do yoga. An hour long session. Right, I'm going to make a grey colour now with the brown and green and white, because some of these petals need to be darkened a little bit in places. Yeah, this one's really quite, I don't want to say ugly, that's terrible. It's I'm surprising myself with my judgments. My cutting judgment of my own work. I had a chat with myself the other day, and I said, no, have your own back and don't be giving out to yourself. And it kind of worked for well, I believe it's the case, you know, that you can kind of, instead of that harsh voice being used to give out to yourself, you could say, right, I'm going to use that harsh voice now to stop harsh stuff coming in. So that was the job I allocated to that part of me, was to tell it to just, it had a new job, and the new job was to vigilantly stop any critical thoughts from entering in, from myself or from other people. And you know, it's a kind of a vigilant part of me that used to chip in with those, remarks that were not helpful. And it did so in a powerful, like, continuous flow sometimes. So it's, I'm going to be quite happy, I'd say, with the job of continually batting away anything that's going to hurt or diminish the part of me that wants to live brightly. So I'll keep you posted on how that goes, that experiment. Yeah, are you with me in the whole thing of it being a very different painting now with those 3 daisies illustrated on top of what was a very lively, swift flower painting? But sure, I think it is good to just try stuff, isn't it? I hadn't anticipated it being the daisies being so chiseled. Right, so I say goodbye to you now, and if I am going for my swim, I'll go for my swim. I'll let you see the whole thing there. I want to show you the sunflower painting too, because I might end up using the reference of that sunflower painting. I'm gonna have to lean across the table here. I might use one of those, or a bit, as reference for the brightness of the petals on that one, and maybe make it stand out a little bit more again in the midst of those daisies. So it's been a pleasure as always. Good, cathartic to have the chat for an hour. Oh, I forgot I recorded a 10-minute thing yesterday in Cockenzie as well from the car, a little sketch I did of the boats, and I recorded a second painting that didn't work, and I think I'll put it up on YouTube anyway. It didn't work in the position I was in, so I started again, or kind of moved the easel and turned off the video, and set myself up in a place where I actually had a table. I wasn't able to use anything for a table. I forgot to bring my table when I was working outside at Cockenzie, so that was a bit hard, and that's the story. So I finished it, and you know what, I might as well show you, because I can just swing you around there. That's the boat. See the boat there? There. That's the painting I did in the end, which is okay, but I think there's something more to be done to it. Anyway, end of story. All right, I hope that you have a lovely day wherever you are, and maybe you could revisit an old painting or something and stick a new flower in it. It's always, and you can do it without having actual flowers in front of you as well. Like, you could just find a painting that you've done of some other flower and stick it in. Maybe you could make a whole imaginative composition that way, selecting whatever flowers you like from your different paintings you have. There's an idea. Parting is such sweet sorrow that I shall say goodbye till it be morrow. Bye.